Welcome back. Ties between India and Canada have hit a point of no return, a historic low, with both countries withdrawing their diplomats from each other. And in all terms, a lot of people believe this is the worst bilateral ties have ever been. But this also is a cause of concern for lakhs of Indians because Canada is also one of the top preferred immigration destinations for Indians, whether it be for tourist visas, whether it be for student visas, whether it also is to settle abroad. So, what does this mean for you and the visa application of yours or your loved ones? Thankfully for that, I am being joined by my guests in the panel right now, Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador, and Naveen Chopra, founder and chairman of the Chopra's TC Global. Let me go across to Ambassador Dayal first. Now, Ambassador Dayal, I'll keep the diplomatic aspect aside for a bit. No doubt India is absolutely justified in taking those very strong measures to send a stern message out to Canada. But with the lack of diplomatic staff at the high commissions in Canada, what does it mean for Indians who are trying to get the visas processed to see their loved ones, whether it be in Canada or for those who have settled in Canada, got PRs, and are looking to visit their loved ones in India, or for those who are looking to go for student visas as well?
Well, thanks for having me on your show. You have very rightly pointed at the fact that Indians will find it difficult to get Canadian visas, and Indians who have become Canadian citizens will find it very difficult to obtain Indian visas. In fact, these difficulties are already quite evident because the number of visas that have been issued by both sides has certainly come down. And this is natural on account of the sort of political relationship that now exists between India and Canada. If you have a deterioration of the political ties, then certainly that impacts the visa issuing process. Besides that, there are all sorts of other impediments. In any case, Canada had reduced the number of student visas that it was going to issue. It had capped the number of issues, and that meant a 35% reduction. Of course, your other guest on the panel is a specialist on this issue, and he will be able to throw more light. But my understanding is that in any case, Canada was planning to reduce the number of visas and had done so for this year as regards student visas. And likewise, work permits and immigration visas were also being cut down. But there is no doubt that the impact of the downslide in the political relationship, in the diplomatic relationship, has certainly taken a toll in regard to the number of visas that are being issued.
Let me quantify that impact, Ambassador Dayal. You're right. Mr. Chopra is the man, is the expert who is better suited to guide our viewers here. But just some of the numbers, Mr. Chopra, correct me if I'm wrong. In 2024, there are about 4,27,000 Indian students studying in Canada. In 2022, over 7,80,000 students deported, Indians deported for Canada. In 2023, 4,37,000 Indians got PR visas. The numbers are massive here. Canada remains one of the most attractive immigration destinations for Indians for various reasons here. What would be the advice you would give to any Indian looking to have currently in the process of applying for a visa, whether it be a tourist visa, whether it be a student visa, whether it be a PR right now? What are the key concerns to keep in mind?
Well, you see, the Canadian policy in capping student numbers has definitely had an impact. But as you yourself have spoken of the numbers, they are, even with the reduced figures, very high, higher than almost any other country in the world for Indian as a destination. The last time or the first time when this row hit the headlines and the relations between the two countries, it was in fact India that stopped issuing visas, for which there was a retaliation from the Canadian side. But the student traffic, what we have observed over the years, is of such critical importance to not just the overall economy, of Canada, but also to the skill shortage aspects that the economy is suffering from. So, for example, in the policy that they have announced in downsizing, they have announced that for the postgrad diplomas, which previously attracted a 2-year work allowance after the diploma was completed, that allowance has been taken away, except for the STEM courses, agriculture, and health sectors where there are critical shortages. So yes, it's going to have an impact. But for students, we would advise that persist, keep going, but planning for the worst case scenario, have a country. The other countries that are migration friendly overall, although they are also tightening up, are Australia, New Zealand, to some extent Ireland, and of course in the European sector, there are a number of countries that welcome Indian students who get opportunities to work and eventually get their residency permits. So overall, it's just a you just have to write this. They cannot. I personally have seen. I mean, we started operations in '95, so in almost 30 years of our operations, we've seen 4 or 5 cycles of this nature by various countries. Canada
So you're
is
saying, Naveen Chopra,
the
this is
first or
not a
second time.
permanent setback. Things can recover from this point in terms of
I
a thaw in visa applications.
I believe that they will. They're bound to. I don't think that there is any
Okay.
option unless the political row escalates to a point where it becomes a matter of a tit for tat kind of principle kind of story. But Indian students are of critical importance to Canada and other countries, Western countries, where the university sector
Okay.
will suffer majorly
Okay.
if the Indian student traffic dries up.
That's an optimistic point of view, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers who are interested will be heartened to hear that. But Ambassador Dayal, do you agree with that assessment? Because to my mind, this was a bubble that was waiting to burst. Even without these diplomatic concerns, there was already a breaking point which had reached in Canadian domestic politics about the influx of Indian immigrants who were taking jobs away and creating some sort of multicultural problems with Canada. And with elections coming in, people, mostly election issues tend to dominate around jingoistic and xenophobic tones. Was this anyway a bubble that was waiting to burst, or do you agree with Mr. Chopra's views that this is just a temporary swing?
No, well, I'm afraid that Mr. Chopra's view is a little optimistic in this context. India's relations with Canada have plunged so deep, so low, that I don't expect any early resolution of the issues involved. And in any case, there is not likely to be any increase in the number of visas which will be issued by both sides. First of all, 6 diplomats have been expelled by both sides, Canada and India. And this will affect the functioning of the respective diplomatic missions. If you have lesser officers, then naturally your capacity to issue visas comes down. And I don't see things coming back to normal very quickly. Secondly, as you pointed out, there were already domestic issues in Canada which were impacting the number of visas which they were prepared to issue to students. They have already
Okay.
brought that down by 35%. It was also impacting the number of work permits they were issuing because that related to the job
All right.
situation. But that would also bring me to a larger point. You pointed out that these difficulties are being
Yes.
encountered in a whole host of other countries. Let me mention that this
Exactly.
problem is on the increase, and there is only one solution. India must increase the number of seats that are available to Indian students within the country. We need to have more
Very, very
universities.
important point, Ambassador. I really hate having to interrupt you, but we're really short of time at this point. We'll have this chat in much greater detail in later on this evening. But you're right. The situation, what is happening in Canada to an extent, is being replicated in the United Kingdom, in Australia, New Zealand, and other parts of the country, of the world as well. It has simply reached a point of breaking point where there simply aren't enough seats outside. And it's time for India to look at expanding opportunities domestically as well, so that we don't have to rely on lakhs of students getting out of the country and then facing a situation of desperation. Thank you so much, Ambassador Dayal and Naveen Chopra, for joining me on this very short chat. It's time for a short break. More news and updates to follow.